As business owners, entrepreneurs, family men, it's difficult for us to find the time to put together projects like these. Even though it's something we really want to do, unfortunately, taking care of the things we have to take care of comes first. However, because of viewer support for people like you, we're able to continue doing this. Please consider joining our Patreon and supporting the Burn and Return podcast. You're listening to Burn and Return, a weekly 1-hour podcast covering news from the agricultural and turfgrass industries. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Burn and Return. For those of you that are tuning in for the first time, this is going to be a little bit about how this works. We have 3 segments that we run through. We're going to cover the hottest headlines, the burns. And if you're wondering exactly what a burn is, that's going to be where we kind of we dissect an article and we point out inaccuracies, fallacies, and all those kind of fun things. And we like to find those articles that really, really reach on to the other side about things that may be wrong and hopefully explain the science on why they are wrong. And then we're going to bring it all back to reality with some nice positive wins from the headlines of the week. Alongside myself, we have Mr. Ryan DeMay, Mr. Ray Ito. Gentlemen, how the hell are y'all doing?
Well, you know, it's snowing out, and I thought about that photo that you sent over here earlier today with the gentleman who had the razor blade as a snow shovel, and I'm sure that there's some people here in Ohio that are probably just as excited to see that snow and maybe a little confused and thinking that they might be able to chop that all up and snort it off their driveway. Maybe, maybe not. Only time will tell. Ray, no snow out in Hawaii. How are things there?
Well, it's a quiet week. Not too stressed out because it's also not howling wind at 30 miles per hour like how it usually is. Although the moment I say that, I probably will have jinxed myself, and it's going to then proceed to do that for 30 to 45 days straight.
Ray, did you get any tsunami warnings with the volcanic eruption that took place?
No.
Interesting.
The only thing I heard of it, was that morning. Then I saw it on the news that there was a tsunami warning, and there was increased tidal flow. But apparently, the worst of that continued on to California.
Yeah, I saw
Santa
a couple
Cruz.
of videos there. Looks like they had
Yes.
they had some splashy waves making their way to shore.
Yeah, I mean they had water coming up, whereas here in Hawaii, what if I told you that parts of the road that go around the island are literally at sea level? So it is very common on a normal day to have waves crashing on the road.
Yeah, that's a weird
Intense.
thing that I just don't have to deal with up here.
Yeah, and so
sometimes
that's
I gotta
why
go uphill. Sometimes I got to go downhill.
and that's
Sometimes
why I
there's
was
a
telling
car-
you, Matt.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's why I was telling you, Matt, that I will look forward to the day where I move hundreds, if not thousands of miles away from the ocean. Okay? I look forward to that day.
It's funny how
But I'm
many
nowhere
people
near the ocean.
who grew up by the ocean desire to get away from it, and those who grew up completely landlocked desire to live by the ocean.
You know why?
Really,
You know why the people that grew up far from the ocean, they only see the fun shit, like the surfing and all that other bullshit. I get to see the tidal waves, the hurricanes, the waves crashing on the road, and oh, by the way, let me tell you what all that salt water does to a vehicle.
Hey, all I'm going to say, Ray, is that, there's you move out to East Tennessee, and it's not going to be all sunshine and puppy dogs. You want to know what's not at sea level in East Tennessee? All the meth
What's
heads that are
not?
high in fentanyl. Okay, they're definitely
Well, gee,
not. They're definitely not at sea level. That's for sure.
we got that in Hawaii already. Except here's in Hawaii, they're also a protected species, whereas in East Tennessee, they're not.
Cruising at delta altitude of 33,000 feet are the meth heads high on fentanyl. But, gentlemen, let's go ahead and jump into this week's headlines.
Nothing to fear here. This is just the
News coming out of the tool world. Guess what we have? We've got another major acquisition here. Stanley Black & Decker completes acquisition of MTD Holdings and Excel Industries. Black & Decker strengthens portfolio with acquisitions in outdoor power equipment industry. It has completed the acquisition of both MTD Holdings and Excel Industries, which are leaders in the $25 billion plus outdoor power equipment market. The Stanley Black & Decker believes these acquisitions will further establish itself as a U.S.-based global leader of the outdoor power equipment industry. The combined purchase price of the MTD and Excel acquisitions totals $1.9 billion, inclusive of standard purchase price adjustments. Particularly, this acquisition of MTD follows up SPD's partial buy-in of the MTD family of lawn equipment in 2018. What brands come with it? You may be asking. The MTD family brands ranges from U.S.-based companies to brands based out of North America, the Pacific, the Middle East, and Europe. Each of these brands is backed by MTD's network of sales, service, and support, and include Cub Cadet, Troy-Bilt, Rover, Wolfgarten, Remington, Yard Machines, Columbia, Robomo, and MTD Genuine Parts. What this could mean for stakeholders? According to a statement from Stanley Black & Decker for 2022, the company continues to expect the acquisitions to contribute approximately 50 cents of EPS accretion. Stanley Black & Decker is also is incorporating 20 to 30 cents of deal-related charges into its full 2021 GAAP earnings per share guidance, as referenced in our October 28, 2021 earnings release and in an 8K filed on November 12, 2021. Accordingly, the company is updating GAAP guidance to 970 to 1005 from 1005 to 1025. There's no change to the full year 2021 non-GAAP adjusted EPS guidance range of 1070 to 1090. All right. Interesting to see how this plays out here. So this means, like, under Stanley Black & Decker here, we also have
like everything.
DeWalt, Big Dog Mowers, Stanley, Craftsman, Hustler, and now we're adding to that Cub Cadet, Robomo, a parts company, Rover, Troy-Bilt, Wolfgarten. Yeah, I mean, listen, how long has it been since any of those names were considered the leaders of the industry? Maybe DeWalt could arguably be there, but DeWalt of today is still not the DeWalt of the past, is it? Or the Craftsman of the past?
No,
they lost a lot of.
Well, that's what
hoorah.
Guess who owns Craftsman now, Matt? Stanley Black & Decker.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
they own it.
They do, and that's what I'm wondering. Like, it's weird that they ventured into this space. That's what I was curious of. Your two opinions here, gentlemen, of why would a company like this, and certainly they're doing quite well for themselves, why venture into this space? What's the play? What's the move here? I'm failing to see it, because MTD is obviously much more into the homeowner market, right? The retail market, and then obviously Excel, Big Dog, all those guys are into the pro market. You're going to see them at GIE and other places. So, what's the move here? Is there room to grow in lawn care?
Hang on, DeMay. I was at Ace Hardware trying to fill a propane tank the other day, and guess what? Mowers that had been residentialized, I saw lining the entrance of Ace Hardware.
Larry Flint's favorite mower?
big dog.
No.
Whoa.
I don't know what Larry Flint's. What is Larry Flint's favorite mower? Tell me this.
Hustler.
Oh yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Ah, come on, Matthew.
Oh, Matt. I mean,
Come on.
I'm slow. I am so slow.
I was just like waiting for you to catch on to the Larry Flint reference, but then only somebody like me would understand that, because DeMay, when you said Larry Flint, I knew immediately what you were talking about. Okay,
were you a subscriber, Ray?
No, I just remember looking at the magazines in the stores, and they had black plastic on all of the magazines covering everything except the name.
Hey, listen, I'm sure there was a time or two you went to the Hustler Club, following up on a lead, see if they needed the bushes treated. I heard there might be some fire ants in the burning bush, but I don't know what you go out and treat that with. Shave and use the shampoo. That's what I would say. That'd be my it's just wild that they're getting into this and they're dropping, 1.4 billion to get into this market with some of those brands. Just kind of, it seemed weird.
And dumbing it down. It's like all right, we're already in Home Depot. How do we maximize our exposure in Home Depot that no matter what aisle you're on, no matter which brand you choose, in effect, you're buying a Stanley Black & Decker brand?
Maybe it is leverage in those spaces, right? To just sit there and squeeze Lowe's a little bit more and Home Depot a little bit more. Like, yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, it's a good point.
That's my thought.
Well, because I'm just going to go back to why all of the unchecked consolidation. It's because you know how we always get anxiety about how the fertilizer industry is consolidated? Now, the tool and outdoor power equipment industry is getting consolidated as well, because if you need a tiller, Black & Decker's the parent company. You need a snowblower, Black & Decker's the parent company. You need a hand tool or a tool accessory, Black & Decker's the parent company. And then at that point, there's no competition. And without competition, there's literally no incentive towards product integrity in this case.
More disposable lawnmowers, right?
Yeah, Matt, may I have the fork and the light socket, please?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard that it's hard to find good tools today. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And it's where used to with Craftsman, you felt like you were buying a good tool. And think about how many people, even in my generation, still have the brand recognition burned into their brain of Craftsman, right? Because that's what my dad had in his garage. That's what my dad's dad had in his garage. And it's not the same. It's kind of like Sears of old, right? Sears at one time had the reputation of being, the store to go to. And now,
once they drop catalog to beat off to.
Yeah. Well, once they drop the lifetime warranty, once they drop that lifetime warranty on any tool that you bought from Sears, that's when I knew this is different. This is a different world, ladies and gentlemen.
Ray, you want to know why I'm sad? You want to know why I'm sad?
Why?
I didn't make this up. I know anytime anybody makes up a nickname for themselves, it's not right. So my nickname when I did my first internship at a turf school, they nicknamed me. So MTD, one of the brands they have is Cub Cadet. They called me the Chub Cadet. And I still see some of those guys today. They still call me the Chub Cadet.
Oh. Why, Ryan? I mean, that's just cute.
It is.
That's just cute.
I thought it was endearing. What do we got next?
Ray, I want your take on this one here. EPA rules on enlist system herbicides, Endangered Species Act, and pesticide processes. There's been a flurry of agricultural chemical regulatory development this week. That they include a January 11th decision by the EPA to register Enlist and Enlist Duo herbicides for 7-year registrations for over-the-top use on herbicide-tolerant soybeans, corn, and cotton. 5-year registrations for the active ingredient 2,4-D choline-based herbicides were set to expire this month. Enlist contains 2,4-D choline, while Enlist Duo contains both 2,4-D choline and glyphosate. Agricultural groups supported this decision. Enlist is a vital tool for soybean growers to protect their crops from damaging weeds and maintain important conservation practices. While we are cautious with reports of new restrictions on Enlist and will be carefully reviewing the registration in the days ahead to determine the impact on growers, a new registration for Enlist is a welcome announcement. For example, South Dakota farmers will not be able to apply Enlist in South Central and Southwest counties of certain areas. Minnesota farmers will not be able to apply Enlist Duo. Further south of Minnesota, farmers will not be able to apply Enlist Duo because of the ESA, the Endangered Species Act, use restrictions aimed primarily at mitigating runoff and pollinator risks. Registration also includes prohibitions on Enlist and Enlist Duo in certain counties where federal regulators deem ESA risks are significant. So it has been passed for quite a while for 7-year use here, but we also see some restrictions due to the Endangered Species Act. So, Ray, talk to us. What is the premise or purpose of using a 2,4-D choline? I have seen this in the lawn market as well. What's the difference between a 2,4-D amine and 2,4-D choline? Why would one choose a 2,4-D choline? And what does it mean now that it has a new 7-year registration?
Okay, 2,4-D choline is even less volatile than 2,4-D amines. However,
that's a good thing, right?
That's a very good thing. However, we need to separate the hazard created by volatility versus actual spray drift. Because do you know what this is related to, Matt?
What's that?
This is related to the dicamba tolerant crops, because supposedly the dicamba formulation that's registered for use on the dicamba tolerant crops is a less volatile dicamba formulation. However, that less volatile formulation does not mitigate the hazard created by spray drift.
Right.
So, because, when I heard about 2,4-D tolerant cotton and 2,4-D tolerant soybean coming on the market, as well as the dicamba tolerant soybean and dicamba tolerant cotton also being introduced, that was my fork in the light socket moment, because I knew the consequence of dicamba and 2,4-D being applied in mid-season. I knew what would come of that. I knew the off-target or environmental consequence related to that, because what basically that means is that you then expose neighboring crops to a lot of spray drift, because typically, Matt, 2,4-D and dicamba are used very early in the crop production cycle before susceptible crops are even out.
Yeah, and the I'm going to flip this back over to turf. I was trying to remember the product that contained 2,4-D choline. It's Game by Corteva is this product.
Game Up. Game Up.
Game On.
That's Game On. But then Game On also has
choline and fluroxapyr.
Yeah.
Actually, Game On has haloxaphin, fluroxapyr, 2,4-D choline. That is supposed to be their latest.
Oh yeah. Arylex.
Their latest 3-way And there's also one more factor related to a 2,4-D choline, and this relates to the turf and ornamental segment. 2,4-D choline is very much low odor. Because to this day, do you know what I remember the smell of? And I recognize it right off the bat.
Which one?
I recognize the smell of 4 pound per gallon dimethylamine 2,4-D.
Yeah,
I remember that smell.
The triplet was the first low odor that I ever used. That came across my desk, but the rest of them stunk to holy hell. Ryan, are y'all looking at? Do y'all run any products that contain 2,4-D choline? Are you excited to see this registration pass? And have you considered any haloxaphin methyl with what you do up there?
So yeah, we've tested out Game On, and there's definitely use cases for it, especially in situations where Ray, timing wise, you might not be able to use a traditional 3-way. You might feel comfortable doing that, and also too, from a let's just face it, a traditional 3-way, in a lot of cases where you have high weed pressure, is just not going to get it done as a one app. Where you see lawn care companies do that. You see, I see so many folks, and it's not just lawn care. I mean, you see it in other realms as well, where, well, I'm just going to spray 3-way on it and see what happens. And it's like, is that the most efficient way though that you can get there? And so I think what Corteva is trying to do is at least put that out there, right? That there's a better way to maybe go about doing this. Now, the thing I'm seeing, quite honestly, Matt and Ray, is the removal of a lot of 2,4-D as a whole, right? So whether we're choline, what's the product from PBI? Power Zone, is that it?
Power Zone, yeah. That's one of my favorites, because Power Zone is MCPA based. And if somebody tells me that they have a problem applying 2,4-D, because by the way, folks, 2,4-D carries a stigma. And you know what that stigma is?
Cancer.
Agent Orange.
Oh yeah,
and Agent Orange, because 2,4-D, 2,4,5-T, because even my father, he looked at one of my herbicide bottles when he was still alive, and he said, "Son, what the hell are you doing spraying Agent Orange?" Because he recognized that.
Sorry,
Dad. Yeah, sorry, Father. I mean, but the shit works. So there, enough said. But anyway,
hey,
2,4-D is effective and it's economically priced, but the United States stands pretty much on its own, because in a lot of localities like the EU, 2,4-D is no longer allowed.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's gonna take place. I see that happening more and more, where whether it's voluntary or not, taking 2,4-D out of the program, right, and going with a lot of. I'll have to look and see. There's a good list I found somewhere.
Because by the way, guys,
other Power Zone like products.
Because by the way, guys, there is a situation where I take 2,4-D out of the weed control program. There's a situation where I voluntarily do it.
For what?
After you hit your annual max?
No, Matt. I will not apply 2,4-D to a lawn where I know the family dog or the family cat spends a significant time on the lawn. I just won't do it. And the reason why I won't do it is because I'm wearing the rubber boots and the rubber gloves, whereas Kitty or Doggo does not have rubber boots and rubber gloves, and that cat or dog is always touching that sprayed grass.
Yeah,
And
and you start reading about some of the effects of 2,4-D into pets. There's no doubt there are some definite causations in that realm of some real serious side effects, including cancer in animals. So
yeah,
it's something to
I
take into
mean,
consideration. And the other thing too is how often that annual max is violated. I mean, you see that just all the time. I spray it twice in the spring, I spray it twice in the fall, kind of sort of gig, right? And like, nope,
mhm.
can't do that. You can spray it twice in the spring or twice in the fall, but you're not getting down any more than that.
You're not doing any more than that. And likewise, I had a long conversation last night with none other than Lushy.
Oh boy.
What? And you know what we were talking last night?
Not bug
Weed
bites.
control. Weed control. Yep. And he was asking me about how to kind of tweak the program so that he smokes the weeds and yet he's not over his annual maximums. And that's where I told him, hey, one of the alternate chemistries that works very well for weeds, especially in a cool season area, is good old triclopyr. You know I'm a fan, right, Matt, of triclopyr?
Yeah, I mean, and especially if you've got cool season grass and you're not utilizing triclopyr and fluroxypyr, then you're missing out. There's no doubt about it. Just absolutely superior products for broadleaf weed control, especially when combined, with an MCPA or a 2,4-D. It's hard to beat that kind of tank mix.
But you know what my regret is that there are no standalone low volatile triclopyr amine products labeled for turf.
Yeah.
Because I can find 4 pound per gallon triclopyr ester labeled for turf all day long, but there's a usage window that you need to kind of consider if you don't want every tree in the neighborhood to also die.
I believe Tricera.
What is
Does it have a
Tricera, Matt?
residential label? I can't remember.
It
Tricera,
does, but however,
it's
that's
it's not an
triclop-
amine. It is not an amine, but it is a reduced volatility compound.
Isn't that like the straight triclopyr acid?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, Helen has really hung their hat on that whole acid herbicide
the thing about the phenoxy acids is that phenoxy acids are still volatile. They still have that volatility risk, and so like my Dow guy gave me a sample of triclopyr choline. It's called Vastlan. And the only thing about that is that is only labeled for VM and pasture. But triclopyr choline would fit the bill for a non-volatile, hard-hitting broadleaf herbicide for use in cool season turf and zoysia. Because, by the way, zoysia is extraordinarily tolerant of triclopyr.
Well, maybe in the future with the approval of 2,4-D choline, we'll begin to see triclopyr choline. In the meantime, we can always point at China and throw stones, right? Because China's blue sky plan for the Olympics is stifling fertilizer output. China's urea plants are getting caught up in Beijing's drive to ensure blue skies for the Winter Olympics, which includes ordering factory shutdowns to curb air pollution. Shocker. 3 plants in northern Shaanxi province were asked to begin operating at 50% capacity due to pollution, driving up domestic prices for nitrogen fertilizer, said Scotiabank analyst Ben Isaacson. Futures in Zhengzhou rose to almost 5% on Friday, to the highest since October, but have paired gains this week. As Beijing ramps up pollution controls in the lead up to the Winter Games in February, more urea factories could be asked to suspend or cut output. China, a key supplier of urea, sulfate, and phosphate to the global market, has curbed fertilizer exports since late last year to protect domestic supplies, a move that worsened a global price shock and risk stoking food inflation further. Chinese exportable supplies firmly out of the market through May. The outlook for urea is also dependent on the cost of energy sources like coal and natural gas, which have risen around the world due to shortages and winter heating needs. Shocker. It makes you wonder about the timing of everything because, boy, did it start to align too well. I don't know, boys. Talk to me. Talk me off the ledge here. Where are we at with this?
Well, I mean, it's too soon to know, right? That okay, all this happens, and now the other thing too that's sort of in question is there's this whole they have a zero tolerance policy on COVID. So what's to say that the influx of people that are coming in for the games don't really ramp things up? I just read today that allegedly they just had their first documented case of Omicron, which seems weird, but any event, right? Let's just say that the games come in, they get started here, which I think they start in like 2 or 3 weeks, something like that. And then on the back end of this, that, well, hey, guess what? Well, COVID shut us down and we can't really get the plants back up. And I'm not saying that, doomsday, all that kind of stuff. I'm just, saying plausible things that seem to be happening here in the States, right? Where we have, trouble opening up schools, trouble, doing everyday business because, hey, somebody's in quarantine or somebody's sick or whatever. And how is that not going to be a fact of life over there, especially when you bring a bunch of people from all over the world? It just doesn't seem logical that it won't be slow to come back online. It's just my view of it. But I don't know. Ray, what do you think?
Okay, this aligns with what we were talking about a week or two ago, where China is stockpiling food, right? Remember that?
Yes.
And I think, like I said, the reason why they stockpiled food, in my mind, is because they were hedging or planning for the combined fallout of the central government ordering factories to shut down and further ramifications from COVID. Because at least I'll give China this much credit. At least any policy or measure or move they make, they have full understanding of what they're doing. Nothing that happens is a surprise to Beijing. They know exactly what the effect of their policy or their mandate is. I can't say the same about the rest of the world.
I don't know. It'll be curious to see. I'm more curious. Are y'all going to watch the Winter Olympics or are y'all boycotting it?
I have not watched Winter Olympics in decades. I just don't care. I don't care.
There's some events I find. The biathlon is an interesting one. I'm going to cross country ski for several kilometers and I'm going to lay down in a prone position and fire this rifle and kill something. That is useful. That's a useful set of skills to have. The other stuff, I mean, figure skating, I don't know what you do with that. Skiing in the slalom, something like that. I like the ski jump thing. That's kind of cool. Where they go see how far they can go. There's something there. I could watch that. But I also did see a video recently of a whole bunch of the genocide victims in leg irons and shackles being led to trains to go to the death camps too. So, I mean,
wow, man.
You haven't seen that?
A time to be alive. I honest to God have not seen that.
I'll get that. I'll get that queued up for you.
I've been seeing a lot of the ones where people are falling out on the streets with blood coming out of their orifices from the hantavirus. You know, I'm in that weird wormhole right now. And
Oh, well, okay, that's
it's just bizarre.
Yep. And see, I didn't bring up death. I didn't bring up death.
You've trained us well. You've trained us exceptionally well.
You know what I think is happening is that now that I'm getting into better health, I'm becoming a better person.
Ray said,
"It's a new Ray.
Not so concerned with death anymore.
Yeah,
still into bombs, not so much death.
Yeah.
Hey, baby steps, Ray. Baby steps. At least we're focusing on the cool shit. Because listen, if you're not a fan of explosives out there, then chances are you're
broken.
Not listening to Burn and Return.
You're broken, and you're broken. Yeah.
There's certain joys in life that come from explosives and fire, right? I mean, that's like the epitome of what it is to survive childhood.
Burn it down or blow it up. One of the two.
All right, let's check this out. I think DeMay has us something over here, maybe quite possibly.
Oh, don't. Oh, no, you don't want to put that up.
I don't know.
Matt,
no, that's for you. That's for you. That's for you. That's for you.
Moving right along.
Yes, moving right along.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's.
I think so. I think so. Yeah.
Let's talk about this week's sponsors, because this is a perfect segue to go from genocide into this week's sponsors. Gentlemen, this is going to be surprising to you, but I have a new sponsor this week, and
no fucking.
You gotta finish it. You gotta finish it. You gotta at least get the. Just let it roll.
No fucking excuses. No fucking excuses.
You know,
is that a Tennessee? Is that a Tennessee Vols jacket, by the way? Is that a Vols jacket?
The hoodie on the inside was, and then I was wearing a raincoat over it just to try and waterproof it. But I got so hot in there because it's a rain jacket that it was trapping all the heat that I was like, after about a mile and a half, I had to pull it off, and then I finished out the run like this, and man, by the end of it, I looked crazy. Because
well, hey, I mean, if you got to keep that rain jacket on next time so you can make weight for the wrestling meet, man. Come on, where's the fucking commitment, huh?
Speaking of commitment, if you are looking to modernize your business here, this is an unpaid sponsor here, and I want to encourage everybody to reach it. If you are running your business and you feel like you are stuck in the dinosaur rut, right? You have not modernized your business. You have not established a set of systems and process to allow you to become efficient in your day-to-day activities. You need to reach out to a very dear friend of mine who's a green industry veteran, Mr. Dan Heberlein. 216-470-7052, criticalops.com. 216-470-7052, Dan Heberlein. Take your shit out of the rut. Quit being a damn dinosaur. Get modern. That will only improve efficiency, especially when we're talking about labor shortages right now, right?
Yeah. Veteran owned, by the way.
Veteran owned, female owned, as a matter of fact. And let me tell you, I had a very long conversation with the owner of this company. Miss Chelsea is one of the most talented, competent, professional people I have ever talked to. It was very embarrassing because I am the epitome of unprofessional. And so trying to, wear a suit to this, I needed to be wearing a suit, and I was wearing a either we scalping or I'm scalping, kind of mindset into the meeting, proverbial. And I don't know. I had to pretend like I was way more grown up than I actually was because Chelsea gets it, and you know what? One day I aspire to be like that. And so anyway, again, if you are interested in modernizing your business, I highly recommend you reach out to my buddy Dan, 216-470-7052. Get your shit together, get your head out of the Stone Age, and bring it all together. Also, this week we are brought to you by our patrons. our co-producers who make all of this possible. Look, we're trying to get to 69 patrons, and for a special reason. When we get to 69 patrons, we are going to start a monthly watch party. And what this means is I don't watch movies, right? And this is an excuse to get me to be able to watch, watch movies. And how many times has Ray or especially Ryan brought up a movie quote? And I have no idea whatsoever what the hell they're talking about.
None.
And they want to fix this. And I should I become a more cultured person, be able to understand these things? Absolutely. But we can't do that without the support of you. Consider becoming a patron. We have multiple tiers that allow you varying degrees of access to different things that we do. And so, for the cost of airport beer and up, you can become one of those. If you can't afford it, by all means, don't do it. I definitely don't want to put anybody out over this, but if you can, you're of the means, we highly appreciate it. Also, our resident attorney, Jesse Bousquet. Jesse Bousquet is a federal attorney and an attorney licensed in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. I know we have some criminals that listen to us, and that's perfectly okay. Listen, I'm no saint. I've been in the back of a squad car. I locked myself in the back of a squad car, and that's a story for another day. And I'm sure that's a story I'll tell the patrons. And you know what? You know who I wish I could have called when I locked myself in the back of a squad car? I wish I would have had Jesse on my side, but I didn't. And it was a very painful process to work through that. You know what? I was lucky that I didn't commit a crime other than, literally just locking myself in the back of a cop car. Otherwise, I would have been in deep doo-doo. But you know what? The whole thing would have been way better if I had Jesse on my side. Check him out, Jesse Bousquet, the man who will keep you out of dog shit. All right, gentlemen, let's check out this week's Burns. Spicy. Boy, it's hard to go from, you're talking about the sponsors and veteran owned and all that fun stuff. And then you jump right into Sheila, riding the lightning there. That's
hey,
nice.
That snow that you were running in, Matt. I mean, the only thing that cools the herpes down this time of year is that nice snowfall and, whatever it takes, right?
And this is some a comment from a show supporter here. How many Camrys have I totaled? And I'm 2. I have totaled 2 Camrys of the 7+ vehicles that I've totaled. But more importantly,
7 plus. I think 7 2/3, 7.5, something like that. We're not sure.
I'd have to sit down and count. I think it's either 7 or more than 7. You lose count after a while, and especially with that many concussions. So, wish I was kidding. Germany's pesticide rules have major shortcomings, just like my brain after that many concussions. Germany's legal framework for using plant protection products has significant shortcomings, the conclusions of a report presented on Wednesday, January 12th by an alliance of various associations show. Pesticide use worldwide has increased 80% since 1990. And you know what? The environmental organization Bund and the Pesticide Action Network, studied it to be able to come up with that kind of statistic. We urgently need a reversal of the trend. European and German politics are now responsible for this, are responsible for the increased use in pesticides, apparently. At the EU level, the EU's flagship farm to fork strategy aims to have both the number of pesticides used and the associated risk by 2030. According to Olaf Bent, chair of environmental organization Bund, this is already a good step. But this is something where traffic light government of Social Democrats, Greens, and the Liberal FDP should have said immediately, we support this and we are doing even more. To date, Germany can at best be given a poor rating for its actions in this area, he added. The new agricultural minister, Sim Ozdemir, for example, should have improved the national strategic plan and implementation of the common EU agricultural policy immediately after taking office to create stronger incentives for the pesticide use reduction ban continue. To achieve the reduction target set by the EU, Germany has so far lacked a clear roadmap. It's not surprising. In its coalition agreement, the government has stated that it wants to significantly reduce the use of plant protection products and promote the development of nature and eco-friendly alternatives. For example, organic farming, which operates without synthetic pesticides, will be better promoted. The coalition government will further develop the National Action Plan for Plant Protection, which sets out Germany's plans to limit risks associated with pesticides. And it goes on and on and on and on. And listen, I want to make clear right now that I don't think necessarily that trying to reduce pesticide uses in general is a bad thing. I definitely don't. I think that's a positive that can be done through targeted applications, appropriate timings, instead of just anytime you got a hankering of a feeling that something bad may be happening, you just jump out there and like, for instance, how many people are applying fungicides right now? I've seen it. I've seen it on the social media world and the social media circles where they're like, oh, Lord, it's getting cold outside. We're going to have gray skies for a few days. I'm going to go ahead and get a fungicide down just in case. And let me tell you, that is so unnecessary. So unnecessary and embarrassing, to be honest. And that is the type of thing that needs to be curbed and curtailed, right? Now, as they state here, there's no clear roadmap on how to achieve that, and lobbing organic farming out there as the solution, that if we just better promote it, more people will adopt it. That is not necessarily the answer to everything, as according to we can point in real time at Sri Lanka and be like, well, don't fucking do that. So
right off the bat,
how do we get there? And is Germany politics to blame for the large increase in pesticide usage, as stated in this article? I feel like there's some good here, but in the other sense, I feel like this article is just it's hitting the buzzwords.
Well, and consider the source of it's a group that is trying to set the stage or set the narrative, right? That there is this increase. I tried to pull the article, but it's all in German and it's all in a PDF, and it can't translate a PDF.
Robert,
so
Palmer, where are you?
Yeah, where is he? We need him now. But I would be interested to learn about the methodology of how they came up with that 80%. All that said, I agree with you that regardless of whatever, clearly there is an increase in use, and so going forward, how do we limit use as much as possible? Completely taking everything away, as we've said before, not the best idea for a lot of different reasons, intended and unintended. But I think the thing here that they're trying to get at is the structural framework within private industry about what pesticides are developed and actually registered, Ray, which is a concern because how many products don't make it to market or don't get labeled in certain markets, particularly lawn care, because it's not worth the trouble, the hassle, and we know that we might not either be able to get the registration through, or we'd have to pull it at some point, and we're not even going to go and piss around with it. Or you've also got the situation here structurally of just the governmental framework, administratively, regulatory wise, everything that goes into approving these products. And I think it's sort of what they're getting at there in Germany, is that there's too close of a tie between private industry and the approval process that it's simply too easy to register and re-register products and push them through, and that's part of what's led to this proliferation of use. And
yes and no, Ryan, because
I agree.
Because
Go ahead.
Because I have an alternate thought on this. When somebody hops up and down about quantity of pesticides used, do you know what I'm thinking about? I'm thinking about how a lot of the so-called green alternatives to established products that work require a higher volume of product per acre versus something that works. And by the way, do you know what's considered a pesticide? Insecticidal soaps, refined oils, copper-based products, lime sulfur, to name a few examples. And those are examples of pesticides where if they're used, they require a high volume by weight of product applied per acre. And according to the anti-pesticide people, they will then point to that and say, hey, there's so many million liters of this being applied through Germany. You're applying a lot of pesticides. You could compare and contrast that with the older stuff where, hey, 0.5 pound per acre and this shit works.
Well, and I think that's.
And by the way,
yeah, go ahead.
And by the way, the other thing that makes me think is that all of the old stuff that they used to use in Germany and Europe before the EU and the corresponding EU environmental mandates, all that stuff got banned by the 2000s, and all that banned stuff went to Asia, Africa, and South America. So all the good stuff that Bayer used to sell is not used in Europe anymore. Let me tell you that.
One other thing that I thought was interesting from the article where they talked about, what are the ways to incentivize a reduction in use. And I think the important thing here would be not just, reduction overall. Like I think they talk about, I think it's the Netherlands maybe, that has basically a use tax. And that's led to a 40%, a 40% reduction in, I'm assuming, use or sales. It'd have to be just sales. It doesn't necessarily mean use. But my thing would be, I'd like to riff on that, not necessarily right now, but it'd be interesting to figure out, okay, hey, how can you sort of hang the carrot out there for applicators, even at the lowest levels, because it's not just, big ag that's going to drive this, but just let's think about turf in our setting, in our world. Like what would, I'll ask this to Matt. Matt's a thoughtful guy. Matt, what would incentivize you as an applicator to put down less pesticides, other than it's going to increase your profit margin, maybe?
Yeah, that would be the only thing, because already, from a volume lawn care perspective, you are already trying to apply as few pesticides as possible. That's why certain things like insect controls or fungicide controls are all already elective applications, right? There's very few people that are out there that build it into the program. We see more of those people on Thirsty Thursday, but if you look at their company size, they're not doing, $1 million plus in revenue a year, right? The people that are doing $1 million plus revenue a year are basically selling it after the fact. And they may have, the occasional customer, the 1% of their customer base that says, look, I know I'm going to get it every year. Let me go ahead and sign up for it. Or maybe, if it's a fescue market, they may have 10 or 15% of their customer base that says, I get fungus every year. Go ahead and apply it. So, do you see it where, like, oh man, we got some cloud cover. I better get some azoxystrobin down for the leaf spot that may show up, kind of thing. It's just, it becomes profitless to operate that kind of business when you're talking about volume lawn care, right? Now, the other thing that is also a limiting factor is the time component, right? So with the advancements we do see in technology with permagreen and permagreen and permagreen, you have the flexibility now of, say, spray. That's a good one, J-Fang. You have the flexibility of saying, okay, I can spot spray weeds this first application while I spread my my pre-emergent, right? And that brings on a whole new dynamic that wasn't available when I was cutting my teeth in this, where you're pulling a hose no matter what, right? And so everything was going to get blanketed with a three-way. Everything was going to get blanketed with the pre-emergent, and that's just the way it got done because you're limited to what you can mix into your 500, 600 gallon tank, right? And every yard's going to get that same tank mix kind of thing. So, technology does play a piece in this, and it is utilized because I guarantee you there are way fewer companies now that are blanketing 3 rounds a year of pesticide as there were when I got started in this. So I don't know. I may not be the best person asking this. How to incentivize it further?
Yeah,
I don't know. It gets real touchy, and I honestly have not given it enough thought to be able to dial it in more than what I just said.
interesting. I'd like to unpack it sometime. I think there's something there that uh, there's ways that I think private industry and the government, and I know we're all not super huge fans of the government trying to tell us what to do necessarily, especially when it comes to this, because we know what we're doing. But
Vibrating.
I think there's ways. All right, moving on.
The ag technology gap. I saw this and I immediately think about long conversations I've had with Ryan DeMay about this. The ag technology gap, when promises fall short of results. When I first read that headline right there, I was like, oh man, the technology being developed in ag is not performing as advertised. And then I read the byline here. Agriculture doesn't have an innovation problem. It has an implementation problem. Novel idea. Says Mississippi producer Chad Swindle, which is interesting. Swindle is my mom's maiden name. It has an implementation problem. Digital information is a realm of genuine opportunity for agriculture, but the shine of a new digital product often dulls in the rows. Boiled down, many growers believe there is a gap between what is offered in the ag data market and what is needed. The basic data framework is a company builds software and sells the product on a subscription fee or standard one-time transaction. But for the grower at the end of the chain, the promises can be paralleled by pitfalls. When the focus is on a tool rather than a result, something is out of kilter. In Tallahatchie County, Mississippi, Swindle grows corn and cotton and owns consulting firm J19 Agriculture. Prior to J19, he worked several years as a field representative for a precision ag tech company and encountered consistent requests from growers. Can you help me figure out what the fuck to do with all this data? I turn down requests all the times. They have been told or heard that data is useful, but just didn't know how or where to start. Most ag data revenue models are built around products and not customer success. It's like being in a store, he says. You go in, buy a product, you pay the company, the deal is done. The problem for a farmer is not about a lack of tools. Instead, the problem is finding someone with a financial incentive to make the tools work. And I'll kind of end it there because it goes on and on and on and on. But, right, everybody has heard the phrase, data is king, right? Data is king. Data. But how much of that data that is aggregated is actually actionable? And is it presented in such a way to be able to give the farmer a real option on what their next move should be to be able to become more efficient, more profitable at the end of the day? That is the giant mystery. And I have to say, I'm not in the ag space, so I don't know, but it makes perfect sense that trying to implement all this shit is nuts. DeMay, I know you have been more hands-on with this particular problem right here. How big of a deal is it?
I think it's a huge deal because you do have access to way more data that we did, 5 and especially 10 years ago in terms of, let's just talk turf. Let's take ag out of it for a second. Because we're mirroring ag. I mean, we're chasing ag 15 to 20 years behind in most cases. And so, what is now becoming sort of, generally accepted, within golf, which is sort of on that leading edge typically of the technology adoption, is something that has been, standard in agriculture for at least 15 years and probably longer. So I think when you look at, okay, hey, where is the market going? Number one, it's definitely going towards data-driven solutions. Okay, we hear those buzzwords a lot, and what does that actually mean? And here's what it means right now. Like what you just said, Matt, you have an absolute crush of data, and for the most part, people are not taught how to interpret it and how to use it. Even if they are, it's only that one single variable that they're controlling for, or maybe two or three, and how those interplay on all the other parts of the system, right, and all the other parts of the agronomic program aren't really taken into account. And so I think that's where this article really hits home, is that the implementation piece of all this, of bringing it all together, making that data actionable and doing something with it, as opposed to saying, okay, hey, I know what my volumetric water content is in my soil, and I know what surface temperature is, I know what soil temperature is, and I know what my electrical conductivity is in the soil. Okay, what do I do? Do I make this fertilizer app? Do I double mow to get this playability number that I'm trying to get? Like, there's all this stuff that goes into it, and nothing's really spitting anything out in terms of the outputs, and then learning from that, right? There's a whole piece there that we can employ different methods, machine-based and otherwise, to help learn what needs to take place next, or can draw on past results, past outcomes, and give us more control the next time that all those variables sort of come together. Or if they don't, what can we change to still get the same result? I think that's a huge thing, and to me, I could go on all night about this, but the biggest thing here to me, Ray, is that there's a gentleman in here that talks about in the article. He does different trials from different companies on his farm fields, but he said that
Right.
the two main points here that I thought were interesting was, number one, he said there's not a lot, they don't help me cross over to other fields. Well, how often are you running a program that is strictly Syngenta and only Lebanon fertilizers, right? In turf especially, we do so much stuff that's mix and match that we don't really know, because the company says, hey, if you do this and use these products, everything's going to turn out fine. Well, there's a lot of other variables that are out there that we don't know and you don't
Yes.
control for when you tell us that works. And the other thing that I thought was interesting is the last quote that he said was, at the end of the day, and this is going to be Ray for sure, at the end of the day, I want to farm, not wrestle data. So what do you think, Ray? Is this the future? And if so, how do we get our arms around this, at least to get started? We're not going to get it all the way there.
What's going to have to happen, Ryan, is the software is actually going to have to do more. It's actually going to have to integrate and assist with a lot more of the decision making. In other words, like I said a week or two ago, this is something where someone like Micah Woods is going to have to go in there and correlate the various data points with turf performance. There's going to have to be correlation, because raw numbers without any reference range or point of reference don't mean anything, because without a point of reference, it's just all noise. It's noise. And for me personally, a data point that is actionable, has a reference range, and is correlated to something, I embrace it, I track it, I work with it. But anything else just becomes noise. And to me, in a business operation, too much noise is another source of inefficiency, because you're then dealing with the noise rather than what's actually important and crucial. And a lot of people I notice get caught up in the noise. They're not focusing on what's actually important anymore.
I'll tell you, so two things to that. Number one is this sort of correlates or is a parallel. I can't tell you how many times managing on the golf course or out in the field in sports turf of somebody saying, well, listen, my app says that there's only a 10% chance that it's going to rain. And I look at them in the face and I'm like, it's fucking raining right now. Look at the radar. Look at the fucking sky. It's fucking raining. I don't care what that app says about 10%, 20%, 90%, whatever. Look around you and take in what's going on. So I do think that you're right, Ray, that some of this has become a crutch or that warm, fuzzy feeling that we need to feel and that insatiable need to know. And that maybe cripples people to the point where they don't know how to act or don't want to act or just simply don't act. So
it becomes something where there's what I call, Ryan, a suspense of common sense, because the hardened cigarette smoking, beer drinking old timers that I know, they always tell me, Ray, common sense ain't so common.
Yeah. Well, like, Matt, I think we should probably use some of your Carbon Earth product because the directional analysis of this soil test is telling us that you need more iron.
Ryan, I appreciate you making that recommendation, but if we're going to talk about biochar, it's important to highlight the Nebraska company attempts to unload toxic waste on Kansas farmer. If you have never heard me preach it before, I preach it like a Southern Baptist up here because it is important to get it into your thick skull, whoever's listening to this. If you do not know the source of your biochar, be wary. Be wary. If you talk to someone and they will not tell you what your biochar is derived from, be wary. These should be explicitly stated and shared for reasons specific to this. A Nebraska company nearly unloaded its toxic ethanol byproduct on an unsuspecting Topeka farmer before regulators intervened in late December. Alt-N, which stands for Alternative Energy, which is under close observation after creating an environmental crisis in Meade, Nebraska, didn't disclose the risk of its biochar before selling it to Brady Yingling, owner of B. Cole Agriculture, according to emails made available by Nebraska authorities. Alt-N is a company that converts treated seeds, so seeds that have been treated with pesticides, into ethanol. And then they take the byproduct of that and put it through a pyrolysis reactor and, of course, turn that into, I'm sure they claim, some sort of renewable energy. And we all know, well, if you don't know, typically those processes have yet to really be that efficient and really generate that much energy altogether. However, in this particular instance, since they are using a pesticide-treated seed, what they're finding is that the biochar that is a result of that pyrolysis reaction that takes place, well, it contains a shitload of that pesticide that was used to treat the seed. So what happened was this company, Alt-N, was knowingly selling this contaminated biochar full of pesticide to a farmer for him to go spread en masse on his fields and thus distributing this toxic or over-concentrated pesticide waste biochar, right? And the guy had no idea. And Alt-N, of course, played, shit, I didn't know anything about that. I've never heard anything about that before. I didn't know that was in there. Well, the state tested it, recognized.
The old Sri Lanka, China. I said the old Sri Lanka, China excuse.
I didn't know anything about it. You owe me $9 million, though. Yeah. I mean, I sold it to you. You're going to pay me, right?
You're paying me for it, right?
This quote right here.
Otherwise, the trains show up.
Is that,
Sorry, go ahead.
Do you hear that? Do you hear that? The handcuffs are coming, boys. The state tested it, recognized that it was full of pesticides, and told them they need to label it. It contains such a high concentration of pesticides, it had to carry a fucking label. And they instead sold it to a Kansas farmer, of course, without a label. Now, I'm not sure where the line between criminality and an honest mistake is, but at this point in the game, the owners of Alt-N knew what they were doing. And of course, the Alt-N is owned by a stepson of a prominent Democrat and businessman who died in 2017. He was a speechwriter for Joe Biden. Does that matter? Probably not. But of course, they have to throw it in here for shits and giggles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
foo dust at the end of this.
Yeah, you got to sprinkle a little bit on there. Here's my question to you, Matt and Ray. How much of this stuff do you think takes place and nobody has any idea? And then it gets like, whether in this case here,
Too much. Too much.
This guy plants his crops and he has super reduced yields, and he's just like, "Daggum, Charlie, I don't know what happened with that biochar."
No, you know what? This wouldn't be super reduced yields.
Oh,
you know what this would be? You know what this would be, Ryan?
Yeah.
This would be the crop where it gets harvested, and this is the FDA on the phone. Hello, where did this corn or soybeans come from? Because for example, let's just throw something out there. The residue levels of mefenoxam or imidacloprid are off the charts. Because, by the way, let me explain to everybody what an FDA residue tolerance is. That is an amount of a pesticide residue that's allowed to be present in a consumed commodity where the FDA has determined that at that level, zero possibility of adverse effect to human health or to the health of animals that are consuming that crop as feed are going to occur. But what happens if somebody is applying off-label, or else in this case, they're applying an unknown and undefined quantity of pesticides to their crop via a waste product that's being repurposed? Guess what happens to that whole premise of proper application? It's gone. It's gone. I mean, and this is just trouble, because I joked about how in the case of Erwinia contaminated biofertilizer, you could technically sterilize the field. The remediation for chemical residue might be a little more involved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think, Matt? I mean, how obviously there's no real industry or regulatory standards here for the production of biochar like this. So is this did this guy just was unlucky and hey, it was an off freak thing, off chance, whatever, or is this rampant?
Dude, let me tell you.
Oh my God. We're waiting for Matt to drop into that.
The majority of the people who are involved in the production of biochar, I'm going to be very cynical here, that the majority of people, not everyone, but the majority, so 51% plus, are in it for no other reason than to satisfy a bunch of people that they sold this project to, right? They don't care what's in the biochar. They don't care how much energy they produce. They don't care whether they do damage or whether they do good. The only thing they care about is satisfying the investors that invested in them. And half the time, they don't even give a shit about that, to be honest. It's F the people who invested. Let me get whatever I'm entitled to get out of this deal and then dip and disappear. And then I'll spin up under a new company, go find more suckers to get in on this because it's going to feel really good, right? Because you're taking a waste stream and converting it into an agricultural asset, right? It's got all of these abilities. It's going to retain water in the soil. It's going to increase crop output. It's going to retain fertilizer additives. And everything else is just a bunch of noise. Anybody who tells you different is just an asshole. Or who was it? What did Doc? How to would Doc say about me? Just stupid. He's just stupid. Was I think were his words to me when I was talking about the potential negatives that go alongside with biochar. And this is a case in fucking point that continues to go on in this alternative energy space where shit is just weird. I guarantee you, for a company that is able to amass 84,000 tons of biochar, 84,000 tons, that is quite literally a mountain. 84,000 tons of biochar, not once has it ever come to their attention that there may be pesticide residue in that biochar. You have got to be effing kidding me. In my opinion, this is as criminal as the majority of the alternative energy industry altogether. At least the people I have been around in this space have been all criminal. And that is putting it kindly. So, no, this is not out of the norm. This is complete and total negligence from the top to the bottom. This is complete and total negligence to whatever. Listen, I have been through more government regulation as pertains to this, and a lot of it is self-invited because there are some people that go into this with just a blind amount of ignorance that people are out there doing ethical shit in the business world. And let me tell you, I have learned my lesson over and over and over that there are a significant number of people that morals and ethics are thrown out the window at the moment you walk into business. And that is a way I 100% refuse to operate. And if that means I never launch a successful business, so be it. I'll die on this fucking hill. But I am sick and tired of watching these things spin up and give an absolute bad reputation to the people that get out here and bust their fucking ass to do a good job. There are renewable energy companies out there that give a shit. Unfortunately, there's a significantly higher number of them that do not give a shit. And that parlays right into biochar production and the unwanted but needs to be talked about topic of fucking water contamination that goes along with the production of it, pyroligneous acid production, and the fucking benzenes. Where did the fucking benzenes go? No one will talk about it. It needs to be talked about. And this is case in point of more scumbag motherfuckers who just give the industry a bad name. I'm done. I think I got it all out of my system there, so we should be good. Gentlemen, let's check out this week's returns. La 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 la.
I'm back.
I'm gonna have fun cutting that one up and adding all the bleep words to it because man, I am shaking. Just shaking. Dude, they were going to dump all that on this farmer. And this farmer was so excited. He got sold on biochar and was just ramped up about it. I guarantee you that Yingling over here was just, man, he's taking a risk on his farm. And, you know, chances are he's probably buying this shit $300, $400, $500, $800 a ton even. And he's just going to broadcast it out there, and he's trying to do his part. He wants to play a part in the evolution of agriculture and retain higher organic matter levels in his soil, reduce his overall number of inputs, and he's about to be fucking dumped on all this. Oh, man, it is.
He's about to be shit on, but then at the end of the day, Matt, do you know what I say about waste products? You know what I always say about waste products?
I know you don't like them.
I don't like them. And do you know why I don't like them?
Because waste products are waste.
It's shit, okay? And you don't recycle or repurpose shit. You safely dispose of it. You don't dump shit on an unsuspecting person and say, here's the magic miracle product. And by the way, enjoy your benzene, heavy metals, and high pesticide levels too. Have a nice life.
It's got 90% carbon. Yeah, get it tested. Get it tested. Be transparent with your testing, and then we can talk about what your carbon content is. On the flip side, Alice ISD field maintenance crew awarded for work at Memorial Football Stadium. The Alice Independent School District field maintenance crew was recognized during Tuesday's school board meeting. The recognition was in response to the field maintenance at the Memorial Stadium, which was named Football Field of the Year by Texas Turfgrass Association. The TTGA is a nonprofit organization located in College Station and specializes in the education and management of turfgrass throughout the state of Texas. Texas Tech, also great turfgrass program, right? I love seeing them extending a little helping hand to the people that are taking care of the high schools out here. our roots are in natural turf. We do have districts that submit
Look
award
at that thing.
applications for artificial turf fields. And we do stay
Ooh.
current with the times, but our background is in natural turfs, and our education programs are in response to our background. Screw the artificial turf, especially in Texas. Stay strong, Alice ISD here, and continue to win awards and demonstrate that your fine turf surface will outperform an artificial turf surface 10 times out of 10.
Hey, kudos.
I legitimately
to these
can't.
guys.
Kudos to them.
Go ahead, Ray.
Yeah, because I legitimately can't stand up right now.
Oh
At
boy,
field.
Ray.
Oh, oh,
Ooh. Your jeans are tightening, Ray. What's happening?
That's the testosterone side effect.
Oh yeah. Wow. So yeah, kudos to these guys.
Yeah.
yeah.
Ray, I mean, Brian, have you worked with any Texas Tech grads?
Texas Tech grads. No, but I know some people that work there. I know a turfgrass professor there right now pretty well. And there's a couple of there's an Ohio person that's down there now. She just started on their field crew not too long ago. I am modestly acquainted with her, and that's about it. So, but they do have a really good program down there. They have an outstanding extension program down there. So they have two extension agents specifically for turf. I think one is based there in College Station. The other one's based in Dallas, and they do a ton of work, ton of education, ton of applied research and things like that, trying to figure out stuff for Texas turfgrass growers. So kudos to them. It's a good setup they've got down there. Plenty of money.
Because growing grass in Texas ain't fun. There's lots of things that are better in Texas. Growing grass there ain't it. I promise you that. 7 simple and eco-friendly things that you can do to help protect our planet. No matter how well-intended, resolutions often have a big problem. Follow through. Each year, we swear an oath to ourselves about whatever it is we plan to do and then promptly forget about it, ignore it, and worst of all, wallow in guilt and self-loathing as we carry on, pretty much like before. I'm going to skip down here. Number 1.
Yeah, to the lawns, yeah.
Composting.
Slide under the lawn.
Compost pile.
Nah, go down there to the lawns. There's a lawns one.
Okay. All right. Here,
Let's go down there.
Let me
create a habitat.
Weeds, feed your soil, make deep watering, collect water, rethink your lawn. I don't mean pull out your lawn. Turf proponents say there are good environmental reasons for keeping your grass. The EPA found that green spaces by our communities up to 12 degrees cooler than dirt or concrete surfaces. By removing turf, we're creating a situation that requires more energy to cool our environment. About 2/3 of energy production in the state requires water. In the end, he says we're not saving that much water by pulling out our lawns. Plus, grassy yards create a lot less dust than those without. Therefore, SoCal lawn owners need to rethink their maintenance and watering techniques. Don't water lawns from November to April, and in the hotter months, irrigate for 10 to 15 minutes early in the morning 3 to 4 times a week. Fertilize your lawn with nitrogen 4 times a year and leave your grass clippings on. If you're planning to plant a lawn, consider Bermuda grass over fescue. About 90% of Southern California lawns are planted with deep green fescue grass, Baird says, but warm season grasses such as Bermuda or buffalo grass need about 20% less water to stay green in hot and dry conditions. Better yet, consider planting a meadow-style lawn with native grasses that need little to no mowing or irrigation. And not some bad statements there, and I would argue that Bermuda grass can be a meadow-style lawn, and I don't know, not too bad there.
I thought Jim Baird, good researcher out there on the West Coast at UC Riverside. They do a ton of work on drought resistance out there. He would know on the water consumption between those two species, and it's just good to see, Ray, that didn't come right out, strike everything down, and say, oh, you got to pull this out, you got to put a xeriscape in, or put synthetic turf in, or do this or do that. I think it highlights the point that yes, there are more benefits than there are negatives to having a lawn as opposed to something else.
Yeah, and in fact, I don't know who the environmental engineers are in Hawaii, but I was telling you guys in a long previous burn and return how usage of synthetic turf is actually restricted here. Versus natural.
Now, what
turf.
way? Oh,
you need to get a building permit in order to install synthetic turf on a residential landscape.
Jeez. I think you'd have to do it
And
here too, just because of they would treat it as an impervious surface.
yeah, well, and I can see that because as an impervious surface, you are actually going to become a possible source of pollution. And in addition to that, that impervious surface also contributes to what's called the heat island effect.
Mm-hmm.
Because what natural turf does when natural turf is properly irrigated, like the grass behind me, that natural turf becomes a surface that mitigates and moderates the climate. In other words, it's cooler. Versus you have that synthetic turf, and that synthetic turf is effing hot, right, Ryan?
Yeah, it's pretty hot.
Synthetic turf is it's hot because I've never walked around on synthetic turf in the daytime in midday sun. I've never done it.
Don't do it, Ray.
But no, yeah, and the reason why I have no desire to is I still remember, I think it was the Christmas Bowl or something on TV many years back, and the game was at Aloha Stadium, for example. And you know what I saw on camera? I saw on camera like several of the players just passing out. And by the way, Ryan, to give an appropriate context, that was the year when it was 90-something degrees and 90% humidity in December here in Hawaii. And I saw guys just dropping. They were just dropping. I mean, it was just too much. Too damned hot.
You don't see that. You don't see that on another surface. But yeah, I mean, I think the whole point is, to what Matt says it a lot, that you look up lawns in Google and the first 30 results you see are all negative. And I think this is a very
hit pieces, yeah.
Well-reasoned,
positive,
well-reasoned, well thought, well spoken. So hey, some of these turf ass academics are really on point, Matt.
Yeah, I'm still over here in left field. JP, hit the mailbag.
You've got mail.
He's coming down.
This one here is from John Doe. He says, "How does Matt honestly feel about people who sell biochar?"
Was that really in the mail?
Let me clarify this, and I want to clarify that the difference is a lot of the people who sell biochar do not dig deep enough to understand the manufacturing of the biochar, right? Because they are asking for a product and they have a relatively confident idea of what to expect from it, and so they're looking for a supplier of it, right? And that's, again, I tried to be the voice of reason behind biochar, to know your source, know your pyrolysis temperature, check your heavy metals, because all of these things can be passed through. For instance, there's nobody that should be taking wood if you're using a wood-based biochar from Ohio. And does anybody know why? Because of arsenic content that tends to show up in the trees that are harvested out of Ohio. And in the event they make their way to surrounding areas to be burned, like for instance, in Kentucky, you cannot bring wood from Ohio into Kentucky to put it through any sort of gasification or pyrolysis process to do this. Anyway, case in point, know your sources, know your pyrolysis temperatures, know what to expect from each one of those wood sources, understand what your manufacturer is doing, what they're doing with the waste material, where it's coming from. All of those are important things. Gentlemen, it's been a fantastic show. We would encourage you to check out our show on Thursday, this Thursday. Who do we have on? Thursday Friday. bitches. We're having a Thirsty Friday. That means Uncle Matt's going to get a little crunk. And for good reason, because we also have on Oli Pool is going to be on Thirsty Thursday. If that ain't reaching across the aisle, I don't know what is. And what you're going to come to find out is that we'll have actually a civil conversation and get to know one another in ways that we didn't think were possible. We want to thank all of y'all for tuning in. We are going to head over to the fine folks who are going to choose the title of this, and that would be with our patrons. Y'all have a good one. We'll see you on Thursday.